Hello everyone, this is Dan again with another video. I wanted to discuss um, some of my experiences that I had when I was hospitalized a few weeks ago, and not about my health issue itself. That's not what this video is going to be about. But I wanted to discuss some of the things that I've noticed kind of from a red pill perspective, particularly from the perspective of understanding, the differences between men and women and understanding concepts like gynocentrism and the differences, like I say, between how men and women think and just how it relates to kind of everyday observations, or in this case, not every day, but, observations that I had while I spent a week in the hospital. And this isn't the first time I've been hospitalized at this place to try to get my neurological condition back under control. But every time that I've been there, there are two or three major things that I've noticed that are kind of funny, and that most people, you know, it wouldn't even be something that they would observe. Um, most women who have, or I'm sorry, most people who have any sort of neurological issue like the one that I have, which is primarily a migraine, um, vertigo kind of set of symptoms, the vast majority of people who have those kinds of symptoms and have major problems with them are women. So every time that I've been hospitalized on this particular floor that has all the patients that are basically migraine patients, 80 to 90% of them are women. There's usually two or three guys that are besides myself that are there. I think at one point there weren't any guys. One time that I was hospitalized, at least for a while. But there are always 8 or 10 women or more, and just a couple of guys. And one thing I've noticed is that not in every case, but a lot of the time, these women will have a support person there with them. Usually a man. The only time that I saw a male with someone who was there to support them, or someone who was visiting them at the hospital, or spending a large amount of time at the hospital with them, was when there was just basically this boy who probably was in his early teen years with his mother. So his mother was there kind of as his representative. But never in any other case have I seen a woman or anybody really, supporting these male patients, in the sense of spending a lot of time with them. Now, the quality of care and as far as, having medical supervision and the doctors that come in and the nurses and all that, the medical care as far as that was concerned, of course, it was good, and they did everything that they could to, help me kind of regain some control over my neurological issue, and they know what they're doing as far as giving you certain medications to help you feel better and function better over time. But you know aside from the hospital staff itself, there's basically nobody there for these guys. And yet, in contrast, the female patients always have um, some sort of caregiver with them. They always have some sort of support system with them. And, well, not always, but the vast majority of the time. And, you see husbands. It's usually men that are supporting these women. You see husbands and boyfriends and, basically different relatives that are there, concerned about these women who are having these health issues, but yet for men, there's nobody there. And of course, I realize why that is, and that's why I laugh. It's because if you're a man and you've gotten to this point where you have to be hospitalized for not a super long period of time, but for a significant period of time, and you have these kind of chronic issues, no matter what they are, in many cases worse than anything that I have, no woman is going to stay with you in a relationship like that, because you're going to run out of resources. You're not going to be able to give her what she wants, and she's going to find somebody else. And so, it's clear to me, it's like it's obvious to me that that's the reason why at the hospital women have so much more support than men. Again, there are a lot more female patients just because of the nature of this kind of illness. But the men who are there, it's like they have nobody to support them, and for me it's okay. It's like I realize that's how it is. I realize it's my issue as far as, looking at looking after my own issues. So, I'm not complaining in the sense that I wish that I had a woman, because I'm beyond that for the most part. um, because I realized that they would just cause more problems than what I already have. But it's really kind of interesting to look at that from a red pill perspective, and to realize that, in one case this woman had a guy who said he was just her friend. I don't know whether he was, getting some from her or had in the past or whatnot, or whether he was just kind of this orbiter who was advocating for her. And this woman did have severe headaches. And in her case, if I remember right, they would completely alleviate for a while, and then she would just suddenly get a bad headache, and it would last for hours, and she would be screaming and all that kind of stuff. But, the guy that was advocating for her, and at a couple of different points was getting angry with some of the doctors and some of the staff as far as her care was concerned. And he was trying to do the right thing, and I can understand why he felt the way he did at certain points. But it's like no woman's going to do that for me. No woman's going to do that for a man in that situation, unless, like I say, there was one woman who had a son who was basically still a kid. I don't remember exactly how old he was, but I remember that he wasn't an adult. And so, you know, in that case, yeah, there was a representative, but, for that kid. But in most cases, if you're a guy, you're just on your own in those situations. And I prefer it that way. I knew why I was going back to the hospital. I knew what my situation was. So I'm not complaining about my overall situation as far as, realizing that a woman's not going to help me in that kind of circumstance anyway. But the bottom line is that, I realize that basically these kinds of things bring out the kind of results that you see today especially, of hypergamy, and of the way men care about women versus how women see men. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, some of the childish behavior by the female patients, by the women at the hospital. You know, they will sit there, and I realize on one hand, while you're sick, while you're getting medication through an IV, and we also have all these classes and different things that we're supposed to attend and whatnot. But I realize that all of that is there, and then there are a lot of times where we're not doing anything other than trying to get to feel better. But these girls will just sit there and color in coloring books, for hours. And then there's this box of beads that one of the hospital staff would bring out, and these girls would play with these beads. And it's just like, I sit there and I'm like, yeah, I know you're bored and you don't really have anything else to do, but seriously, like, this is what children do. And I sit back and I watch these women basically engage in these childish behaviors. It's like, you're gonna sit there and color. That's what you do in your spare time. And I know I'm an asshole for saying that, or for having that viewpoint to some extent. It's because it's not like I had, a whole lot of other things to do besides that. It's not like I was going to advise them to do something else. But just to sit back and watch these women just color and play with beads and just talk nonsense. They just sit there and chat and chat. And, I'm the guy who is kind of a lone wolf, or as much as I can be. My kind of default personality is to be kind of a loner. And I just sit there and I'm like, what does this do for you? you know, what is sitting here and coloring and talking nonsense, what does this do for you? And this is just, again, my overall experience from being at the hospital was, I want to get better. I want to be more functional. That was my goal for going there. And I feel like I did what I needed to do. But as far as sitting back and observing female nature and observing kind of what I've learned about life and about social interactions between men and women, and just the differences, the raw kind of um, very pronounced differences once you know what you're looking at between men and women. I just thought I'd make a little video where I mentioned how these things are just kind of really observable once you have this kind of foundation of red pill knowledge. And I know in a way I'm being a dick. It's not like there was anything necessarily wrong that these girls did, or it's not like these men that were at the hospital, some of them may be married. So some of the male patients may have been married or something, and the wife just couldn't come, or something like that. She just didn't have time to visit her husband in the hospital, or whatever the case may be. But it's like, understanding female nature really leads you as a man to making observations and to seeing things as they are, having your eyes open and being able to say, yep, this makes perfect sense when you look at it from, the perspective of understanding things like hypergamy, understanding that women are emotional creatures, that, men pretty much are expected to lead, or, they have better leadership qualities as far as being able to think logically and being able to do things that are productive. Um, Not that I was all that productive while I was there, of course, but just seeing these girls sit there in color, seeing these girls, play with beads and just talk nonsense the whole time. It's like, you know, it's astounding that that makes sense as far as a choice for them. But I'm not the one to say who should be doing what. I was there for a particular reason, and so were they. But, just to sit back and kind of see the differences between the male patients and the female patients, see how, to view how guys like myself there seem to, have a mindset of, hey, I'm here for a particular purpose. I'm not here to just talk to everyone. If I met a couple of people there. If you meet people, that's fine. I'm not saying that you can't be social at all, but, just the difference between how guys have this kind of common sense, I want to get better, and, I'm not here to play with beads and color kind of approach, where the women, it's just like they have all this support, they have all these guys advocating for them in many cases, and, they just sit there and engage in things that, as a man, I find to be silly. But, I'm sure women find a lot of the things that men do as silly as well. But it's just, it's astounding how your observations change, and how you can see things that you didn't realize were going on once you have a red pill foundation, of knowledge. Once you understand male and female nature, and once you realize that, yep, women are hypergamous, none of these men are going to have, female companions supporting them for the most part. And, you can see the differences between how the male and female patients behave, and you can say, yep, this isn't really unexpected. But, the vast majority of people they just have no clue. Like, they wouldn't understand these observations, and I wouldn't have had these observations, before I learned about male and female nature. So I just thought I'd ramble on about that a little bit, and talk about some of those experiences, and how, you know, once you have that foundation, for understanding male and female behavior, how, interesting it is to take a step back and kind of observe it all from time to time.